You know, what's awesome about November is it's full of opportunity. Obviously, November is where dreams are made. That's where we as hunters can't wait. Of course, if I had to pick a month, I guess I don't know if I'd pick October, November, but boy, November with gun seasons, the peak of the rut, post-rut, and even the start of the second rut towards the end of the month around here, boy, November is hard to beat. And with all that potential of success comes the potential of failure. And I think a lot of times, a lot of these failures have to do with people throwing caution to the wind and just, this is when I need to shoot my buck. I need to go out, and we forget, like try to remind folks all the time that the season is a marathon and not a sprint. So number one of the biggest failures, going nuts. And what I mean by that is you go in, you think, I'm going to be conservative in my calling. And all of a sudden you're blowing your grunt tube as loud as you can every half hour, even trying to snort wheeze in there, even though you don't hear a deer around you. You're banging the antlers over and over and over again. You're just thinking something's got to happen. I got to make something happen. Time is running out. When really, again, time is on your side. You still have December. You know, most of the really hardcore deer hunters that I know that are really passionate about the sport, I'll ask you this about fishing. Do you only fish in June? No, maybe that's your once a year annual fishing trip to go to Canada or something. That's a little bit different. That's when you go. But most people that are fishermen are, for example, we're ice fishing. We do go to Canada, but we go 5 times a year. We go down the Mississippi too. And so we like fishing. Now, one of the only times I don't fish is during deer season. But the rest of the time, and then Dylan, when's the last time you fished? I think you talked about it like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
It wasn't great. It's been probably 6 weeks now. I'm ashamed.
But that was still probably late September, October.
Yep.
And last time we went was really October. Bottom line is, though, there's a lot of season. You look at not hunting the wind. Also, your favorite stand, just pounding it over and over again. You look at it like, this stand has always brought me home. I've always seen a lot of deer here. I'm going to live and die by this. You just keep hitting it and pounding it. Now, for those detractors out there that say, well, most people can only afford 1 stand. They can only afford 2 stands, 3 stands. I'll tell you this, I didn't have a lot of money when I was a teenager and in my 20s, even into my 30s. And you know what most of my Christmas presents, birthday presents were from anybody and everybody, even if they had to go in on it, was a tree stand. I would collect tree stands because I wanted to have a lot of tree stands. I wanted to have a lot of options. I spent a lot of time in the off season. You know, gas money is one thing. Gas is expensive. But at the same time, there's times I've slept in my truck, even going hunting, using a wind-up alarm clock in my truck to sleep a half hour and then wake me up for the rut. A wind-up so I made sure I woke up on time. Bottom line is you can make sacrifices. It's good to have something else other than one option. And what I find are those people that say they fish, and there's fishermen. There's people that say they hunt, and there's hunters, like actual hunters. And those are the ones I'm trying to talk to. And if you're just on the fence of spending a lot of time in hunting, it doesn't take a lot of money. We have the opportunity and a lot of resources we can expend around here, but then we love going and hunting public land. There's private land that you can hunt that's public around here too. So there's a lot of ways to get in the woods that doesn't cost that much, and there's a lot of opportunity out there. You don't have to go nuts and throw caution to the wind, and that's where forgetting the golden rule, number 2. What is the golden rule? It doesn't matter if it's during the rut, during the peak of the rut, off season, whenever. Deer in their bedding areas, going to their bedding areas in the morning. So where should you be as a hunter? Someone asked me the other day, it's during the rut. Should I sit on this food source or near this food source where I can see movement the first 40 minutes after daylight? Or should I go back by a bedding area where I can see movement all morning? And they're looking at it like they probably have a camera in that location near the food source and they're seeing consistent movement. There's a very high risk of going in near that food source and spooking out deer, and then they're not going to be in the bedding area either. There's very low risk of going in and hunting around that bedding area, waiting for the deer to come back to you. If you don't expect them back there for an hour after daylight, that's prime. Find a different way to get in there around the food sources, get in and wait for them. That's morning hunting. Afternoon hunting, I'm sitting in that stand that they're talking about hunting for 45 minutes in the evening. Those areas become staging areas, and if you never spook them out in the morning, they become consistent. You go in there in the afternoon, you're not going by bedding, you're not spooking them out. You have good winds, you can hunt that setup over and over again. Golden rule. Remember that. It doesn't matter if it's peak rut. People think, well, I'm gonna sit in a stand all day. Very few all-day stands connect with morning bedding and afternoon food sources. There is that perfect X of movement I always talk about around here. About 15% of our stands are good for an all-day sit. Number 3, going all outdoor channel. What I mean by that? Go sit in the middle of a food plot. Drive to your stand in your ATV, your pickup truck. And there'll be people out there say, hey, I do this all the time. I actually had someone this morning in a comment on my video I put out this morning. And they talked about, and it was a comment I read this morning and commented back. But they said, boy, all this figuring and calculating and planning, this is not what hunting is. Hunting is enjoying the outdoors. And my comment, in not exactly terms, is like some of us like to use our brain. Like I like to use my brain to hunt. You know, there's people like to play board games of chance. There's some people that like to play board games of skill and strategy, where you can use your head. I like that type of board game. Board games where it's just chance, you just roll a dice and whatever it tells you, that's what you move on the board. I don't like playing that because it's just boring to me. Now, if we're just all sitting around, having a cocktail, being social, that's one thing. But I like to use my brain. And that's why I like hunting. That's why I like fishing. I like figuring things out. When we go up to Canada, I like figuring where the walleyes are at. You know, not every day is a good day. Dylan's been there fishing. You got to have a strategy. You know, once you find that pattern, you can repeat it. But I'll tell you what, you go up a month later and that pattern's blown. They're on a different pattern. That's fun. And that's what deer hunting is to me. And so when you take the thought out of it, and when you start using ATVs, you use truck, drive to the stand, you sit in food sources because you saw a bunch of deer. That's more the outdoor channel. That's cable TV. That's the hunting shows where they make it look so dang easy. And you don't realize a lot of those that make it look easy, it was actually really hard for them. They're going after a certain target buck that they might only see. I was watching one last night. We were watching hunting videos of the kids. Jackson will love to just sit there and watch hunting videos. Mouth open, staring at the field, or staring at the screen. I watched Mark Drury, and I don't even know what the years were, but he was hunting an old 9-point. And they saw it one year. That was the only time he saw it that year. The next year, they didn't see it at all. They saw it during the summertime. And then he ends up shooting the thing late in the season. It actually gone downhill a little bit. It was probably a 7.5 to 8.5-year-old buck. The point is, that's a buck that Mark Drury, people would think, hey, just go out and shoot a big giant buck anytime they want. He wanted that buck. It took him 2 seasons, and he saw that buck a total of 2 times for the entire years that he was hunting that buck later in those years like that. It's not as easy as some people make it look on the outdoor channel. So if you hunt that way, the way it looks so easy, then you're probably going to be left with empty tags. Number 4, lack of scouting new spots. You know, I make this example. I hunted a property in Wisconsin for 13 years. And then I've hunted another one now for 11 seasons, I think it is. So it's been since 2002. In that 13 years on the other property, I ended up shooting 17 bucks, or 12 seasons, 13 seasons, whatever it was. But 12 bucks or 17 bucks out of 14 different stands. My buddy that hunted with me all the time shot 9 bucks out of 2 stands, 8 bucks out of 1 stand. What I'm trying to say with this, you can get locked into a favorite stand and you forget about this stand over here and you go over to that spot. And I go to those random spots, and it was almost like the further into the season, the more we hunted, you'd think, man, what stand have I not been by? What corner of the property might be holding a deer? So I'll go to that stand. You know, my buddy would say, I'm going to that stand, the same stand every time. We used to draw straws to see who would pick first. It got to the point where I just let him pick, and then I'd had the rest of the 20 stands that we had to choose from to go hunt. And so I would go to a stand, and you think, you know, it's a reasonable hunch. Maybe you saw a nice rub pointed that direction 300 yards away. I go to that stand, and I'm going in there, and I'm like, man, this is full of sign. There's a fresh scrape right in front of me. You can smell tarsal gland, urine, whatever it is on the scrape, and I'm going to be set up for a good night. And that's why I shot 14 or 17 bucks in 14 stands, because I was always moving around. And during the season, it always pays to do that. Look where that fresh sign is. Look for the rubs. Even if you're scouting from outside, use your binoculars. Look in. You can pick out some giant rubs, especially with the leaves down. And don't get so locked into one spot that you forget about some good opportunities you already have planned probably. And you're looking at it like, you hung those sets, you planned on that specific tree. If you're a saddle hunter, you're going to go into that spot, and then you had all this off-season preparation for there, and then you forget about it for the entire season. And we're all guilty of that. So make sure you don't forget about your in-season scouting, even if it's November. Because people, again, think that a deer is just going to walk by at any tree, a big buck. And I've seen big bucks move past several cameras over a couple miles in one day during daylight. But that doesn't happen very often. That only happens in the most intense portions of the peak rut when cruising conditions are ideal. I can tell you for about a 36-hour period, and now we could say 48-hour period, including this morning, it's been pouring rain, misty, windy. Yesterday, foggy, hot, rainy all day. The day before, terrible winds, lots of rain all day, a couple inches of rain. We're getting another half inch or an inch today. We got another quarter inch yesterday. Terrible conditions. And I can tell you with dozens of cameras in 2 states, we're seeing absolutely hardly anything moving. I mean, we're seeing 10, 15 bucks in a day. And this is peak rut. So we're concentrating on actually when that breaks this afternoon. Is I can still hear it pouring out on the porch up above right now. But when it breaks this afternoon, I'm hoping that rain stops within the hour, that we're going to have some really good hours before dark tonight, especially because it's about 12 to 14 degrees cooler today. The air is a little bit cleaner. There's a higher wind up top. We're going to hunt low, and I'm really excited about that sit. And finally, burnout. You got to be really careful. Everyone talks about the rutcation. Rutcation a lot of times, and I'm not saying someone that doesn't hunt a lot of hours or days per year is not a hunter. What I'm saying is a lot of hunters plan on hunting October, November, and December, not just their 9-day rut hunt. Now, for some, that's what you have to do. But for a lot of us, even if we had time that we went out of state to hunt, leases or public land, I've probably missed a public land year since the mid-'80s. We're going back to Pennsylvania again this year. Went to Pennsylvania last year. Can't wait. But even then, I'm planning those trips. Even if I didn't have great spots to hunt around home, I'm finding the next, quote, great spot. If it's not a good one, I'll try somewhere else. I'm never giving up around home. So even if I plan my rutcation, I leave and I hunt for 8 or 9 days, still there's opportunity around home. And I think if we throw it all into that basket of 9-day hunt, we're going to hit it hard for these 2 weeks, really sets ourselves up for burnout. Not only burnout from us and getting fatigued and tired out. I'm in the hunting industry, and I still don't choose to hunt that way. Some people find success every year on monster bucks because they're hitting several states, and they're literally sleeping a few hours a night, going from hunt to hunt, spot to spot, sitting dark to dark. And they're successful just because they're dogged. They're just working so hard at it. To me, that is not fun. I want to work hard in the off season, make smart planning, and hunt more like a tactician. So when I go to a stand, we expect success, and I'm going in when the conditions are optimum. But when you hunt dogged, you burn out yourself, you burn out your career, your family. So really take the time to step back, hunt smart with precision, understand the season is very long. You don't have to throw in the towel, try to become an outdoor channel hunter. You don't have to go nuts and just throw caution to the wind. There's a lot of opportunity in November. And I think if you really hone in on not doing these 5 fails right here, then you're going to find success all the way through the end of the month of November. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. You're our best followers. You followed all the way to the end of the video. Really invite you to check out our website. We have our Earthway spreaders for sale. Great Christmas presents. We're booking clients right now, all 5 of us. So by the end of December, it seems early, but by the end of December, our schedule will be booked for 2025. It's hard to believe. I'm already booked for December and most of January, February. We have our web classes, the Rut web class, how to design your whitetail property, and really important, hunting hills and thermals, understanding the wind. Those are great products on our site, all the books. Thank you so much for watching all the videos, buying the seed that you did this year. Really appreciate you.